here to Multifamily Formula Live. Thank everybody for coming here on a Tuesday in August in the summer. Hope everyone's summer is going well. I'm excited about today's presentation. And one thing here before we get going, please use the chat to, is the networking in here. Use the chat to say whatever information for your to reach you, and also I like to know where everybody's from. That's always a great opportunity here to connect. This obviously was a New Jersey based multifamily meetup, and over the last year we've been virtual, and it's pretty amazing that we've been able to grow and have guests from all over the country and meet members from all over the country. So thank everyone for coming on tonight. I'm going to let a few more people in before we begin. Here I'm going to be the first put my information in the chat here. We'll begin. Excellent. So just obviously this Neal is not someone who needs introduction, but I will give a short brief introduction here. Thanks everyone for coming. Our topic here in multifamily markets and trends, and looking forward to sharing our a discussion on what's going on in multifamily right now. Obviously, Neal is a technologist who is universally known in real estate circles as the mad scientist of multifamily. Besides being one of the most in-demand speakers in commercial real estate, Neal is also an outsourcing expert, a data guru, a process freak. Neal treats his $250 million multifamily portfolio as an ongoing experiment in efficiency and optimization. The mad scientist lives by two mantras. His first mantra is that we can only manage what we can measure. His second mantra is that data beats gut feel by 1,000,000 miles. These mantras are a dozen other disruptive beliefs drive profit for his 300 plus investors. Neal serves CEO, founder of Grow Capitalist, an iconic data-driven commercial real estate investment company. And with that, I'll throw it over to Neal, and we look forward to the presentation.
Thanks, Jerry. Glad to be here. It's nice to be in these kinds of virtual meetups. I'm in California, and I'm in a meetup with a whole bunch of people from New Jersey. Such is the power of Zoom, and such is the magic of COVID. I say, COVID's a horrible event with lots of magical properties, and this happens to be one of them. So looking forward to spending some time with you, opening some minds, and with your permission, I'd love to get started. All right, I'm going to share my desktop here, and I'll go ahead and let me know when you can. Oops, I think I've got swap displays. There we go. Let me know when you can see the Disruptive Trends presentation up on your screen. Yes, give me a thumbs up.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so today I'm going to actually cover 8 of these 10 trends. This is a very long presentation. I want to keep it down to about 40 minutes. And so I'm going to cover the 8 that are my favorites. There's a couple others that are interesting, but I feel like they're more of a future thing rather than something that's happening today. Now, you'll notice that about 4 of these are about multifamily, and then the others are not about multifamily. Of course, the one that I'll finish with, no surprise, is going to be about multifamily. But the goal is to really make you think beyond multifamily. Think real estate, think 1,000, 100,000 feet level. And that's what I'm going to do. These are game changers. These are the Amazon and Google level events. And to find these top 8 trends, we looked at over 50 trends in the market, and we then carefully picked the 8 that we're going to talk about today that are the most powerful, they're the most profitable, the most earth-shaking, and the ones that are most connected to multifamily. And that's the story I'm going to tell you tonight. So, many of you know me, but for those that are brand new, I am a opinionated data scientist and technologist. I buy and build large projects. There's about 500 investors investing. The portfolio is over 500 million. Half of the projects are new developments. So top row is townhomes, middle and lower rows are large apartments and student housing. And the one on the bottom right actually is a large industrial project. And I love all of these, but cash flow is king. So the other half of my portfolio are these ugly duckling multifamily and self-storage projects. They produce about $4 million of beautiful cash flow for our investors. So here's my most boring slide. Lawyer wants you to know we're not investment advisors. This is educational. We will make lots of investment recommendations, but please make sure you do your own research. Investments are risky. Be aware of your risk tolerance level. And also understand that recommendations are not a guarantee of performance. Consult professional advisors. All right, let's get this show on the road. I said I would tell you about 8 earth-shaking trends, and these trends are all tied back in some way or other to COVID. Now, disclaimer, COVID's not one of these 8 trends, but it's accelerated all of these trends. And remember what I'm about to say. I'm going to say this several times. Hitler brainwashed 20 million Germans. COVID brainwashed 7 billion people. It affected us all. It changed us all in very subtle ways and in very obvious ways. We now have new fears. We have new needs. We have new comforts. And there lies the great opportunity of the next decade, because people don't just snap back after trauma. Nobody does that. That's not the way the human mind works. Once you understand that as an investor, the biggest COVID of impact is not a disease. It's in the way it changed the world. Now you can look into the future. You can see trends that you simply couldn't see before, with my help, of course. So moving on to, there's a bunch of things that I want to show you on the screen that were hugely affected by COVID, right? Some in good ways, some in bad ways. The ones in the first row are pretty well known. As you go down the rows, there are actually some trends that are not as obvious, but are more powerful for investment. So scan through these so I can get you mentally ready for the trends. All right, you took a look. With this in mind, it's time for our first disruptive trend. And that trend is so tied to multifamily. That trend is hybrid work. Today, after all the research that my team's done, I can say with absolute certainty that the world will never go back to where we were before the pandemic. HR department after HR department is releasing surveys that for white collar workers, the meaning of work has changed completely. Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, many other companies are facing these mini revolutions by their employees, right? Apple's moved to offer just 2 days of remote work with 3 days in the office. It's not gone over well. I mean, reportedly, there's thousands of employees that want more flexibility, or they're going to, vote with their feet. So let's dive deeper into this hybrid work phenomenon and what this means for you as a real estate investor and a multifamily investor. So COVID was, and still is, the greatest single home working experiment in history. Tens of millions of CEOs were simultaneously trained in the best way possible in how to run their companies remotely. And they all discovered, to their shock, that they got more work out of employees than they did the year before. And as a result, 2021 will forever be known as the first full year of the hybrid office phenomenon. And just as we've become used to on-demand streaming and shared cars and shared vacation homes, the office will increasingly become a space where employees go when it suits them or when it fulfills a specific need. Take a look at the screen. 95% of employees want hybrid work. 75% are willing to trade perks for flexibility. 64% are willing to pay more for access to a workspace at home. Please mute. There's somebody that has noise in the background. Please mute yourself. Unmute. There we go. You can hear me, guy, right? Yes? All right, good. Thank you. So 64% are willing to pay more for access to a workspace in their home. Half of them would even fork over money to pay for a co-working space if their company wouldn't pay for it. These are huge numbers. These numbers are massive. Employers are bowing one after the other to demand from workers. And if they're not, well, here's a statistic. The number of employees resigning their jobs if not offered flexibility is the highest in history. As they say, once you get addicted to a better life, people will not go backwards easily. Okay, fine, Neal. What does this mean for me as a real estate investor? Well, I have 6 takeaways for you up on the screen. We're continuing to see people move to distant suburbs or even to rural or remote communities. We're living in the age of the tertiary market, the true tertiary market. A lot of people don't understand what tertiary is, right? Provo, Utah is not a tertiary because Salt Lake City is 40 minutes away. That's not a tertiary. Idaho Falls is a tertiary because the nearest secondary market to Idaho Falls is Boise or Salt Lake City, 4 hours away. We are living in the age of the tertiary market. We will continue to see demands for more bedrooms. So larger homes and larger apartments become the norm. If a metro's hottest demand was for 3-bedroom homes, now it's 4. If the strongest apartment market was for 1 bedroom, now it's 2. Tied to that is a greater need for co-working spaces, but not in downtown San Francisco or New York, but in the suburbs. So there's a great investment opportunity to invest in suburban co-working spaces. Finally, we are seeing bidding wars continuing and even accelerating in suburbs and remote communities. This means that the next 10 years could be really great for beautiful communities like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, beautiful, St. George, Utah, gorgeous Red Rock, Myrtle Beach with clear blue water, Asheville, North Carolina with beautiful hiking and mountains. These are all places with natural beauty. They've got a high quality of life and people are flocking to them. All right. Those are our nuggets, and hopefully you're writing them down. This whole presentation is supposed to be you with pen and a piece of paper, because I do not have everything on my slides, but I'm going to give you actionable items for each of those, just like I gave you Coeur d'Alene, St. George, Myrtle Beach, and Asheville, North Carolina on the first one. Let's move on to our second long-term disruptive trend, and that is healthy home design. The pandemic, it forced people to spend more time in their homes, right? So people are spending all this time working, studying, homeschooling, exercising. According to the Global Wellness Institute, wellness real estate is now worth an estimated 134 billion, and it's growing really fast. Very, very few developers are competing in this space because not all homes are designed this way, where residents can feel the difference, right? Healthy home developers, they bring nature into buildings, greenery, water, natural light, fresh air, large windows, right? And then common areas for co-working and socializing in a safe way, right? By the way, our latest projects, they include beautiful botanical and wellness features. So shameless plug, but we want to point out that we designed all of these features a year before COVID hit, and now our investors are enjoying amazing profit and amazing benefits. So let's dive a little bit deeper into healthy homes, right? Let's start with some stats and tips. As you can see from this first stat, requests for home offices through the roof, people, through the roof. Multifunction rooms, 43%. Exercise rooms, 23%. So wellness real estate, which represents homes that have filtered air and water, green surroundings, those are growing at 9%, much faster than overall real estate. So at the bottom in the orange bar, these are the things that you should be looking for when making real estate purchases. Balconies are worth the premium. So are flex workspaces. Green space near the property like parks means lots of dollars for you. And when making investments in apartment, go for the ones with the larger units, especially townhomes, and walk away from the studios and the 1-bedroom units because they are out of fashion in a post-COVID world. Access to outdoor amenities, huge deal. The pandemic taught 7 billion people, remember, brainwashed, a new appreciation of the outdoors because we couldn't go to malls, we couldn't go to movie theaters. Remember what I said about COVID brainwashing 7 billion people? 7 billion brains cannot just snap back. So today, parkland in the US is valued far more than it was before the pandemic. Cities with more green spaces like Austin are on fire, while high density metros like New York, they're suffering. These are some of the indoor and outdoor amenities that we are seeing increased demand for. This one's my favorite, botanic design. So this is actually one of my properties. Do you see the botanic design there up on the walls? People are going crazy over this. We even separate areas within our properties now using these fake walls. They're fake, they're rubber, but they're rubber and plastic, but they look stunning. We just kind of hose them down once every 2 to 4 weeks. Phenomenal stuff. Okay, fine, Neal, but I don't build custom homes. Give me some ideas. Give me some profit-making ideas on this healthy home trend. Well, here's some ideas. Ready with your pens? Right? Consider investing in air purifier manufacturer stocks. Companies like Alen, A-L-E-N, or Austin Air Systems, or Blue Air. These companies are positioned to ride this long-term trend. What about water purification systems? Companies like Aquasana, Pelican, LifeSource. These are great stock picks. My personal favorite is a company called Delos, Delos. They pioneered the well building standard. They've got breakthrough products like Darwin, which is this revolutionary healthy home dashboard. Check them out at delos.com. Another pick is Peloton. This is a branded maker of exercise equipment because demand for building exercise rooms in homes is through the roof. So we think that Peloton's going to do really, really well. So those are my nuggets for disruptive trend number 2. And number 3 is the transformation of retail. The quote on the screen is worth reading verbatim. The pandemic has been dubbed the great accelerator for retail and has meant e-commerce taking a greater share of sales, store fleets being rationalized, and retailers and retail bankruptcies being pulled forward. Let's dive into this trend. I want to start by pointing out the chart on the right. This shows the percentage of retail sales that come from e-commerce, right? Over the last 20 years, you can see, it's been a smooth increase. I'm going to drag this over here. Smooth increase, right? You see this nice smooth increase, right? So e-commerce sales 5%, then 10%, and then COVID happens, and we see this stunning once in a lifetime growth. E-commerce sales currently have straight line growth. Straight line growth is very rare in our world. This is why Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. And what about brick and mortar? Well, these bullets talk about the massive hit that malls are taking, with vacancies at record high. 25 malls have been purchased by just Amazon to create distribution centers. We're expecting 30 to 50% of mall-based department stores to close by the end of this year. I think it's going to be closer to 30%. And Amazon's taking advantage of that. Bullet 4 points out that, brick and mortar is not going away. It's going through an evolution. There are these newer style of outdoor malls that are a combination of retail, apartments, offices, hotels. My favorite example, Simon Properties Domain project in North Austin. The offices at the Domain provide, customers for restaurants and retail sales during the day. And then the apartments provide customers for them during the evening. So this is a much more resilient model, multiple streams of income, very smart concept, and we are going to see it all over the United States. Okay, Neil, so how do I make money from this third trend? Well, firstly, while Amazon stock's really expensive, have you considered investing into industrial real estate projects? Look at this straight line up there. If retail demand falls, wouldn't you see an increase in industrial and fulfillment centers? Yes, which is why the first phase of the industrial project we are building in Utah, it got sold out at fantastic prices even before we finished building it. Like, it's crazy. We didn't even put tenants in. We got amazing offers, right? Good for our investors. We're planning on doing more industrial projects for this year. We don't do them very often. And you can sign up to get information about them. Now, there's other ways of investing in this trend, not with me. Invest in logistics and fulfillment companies. If your pen is ready, here's a few: UPS, FedEx, XPO Logistics, JB Hunt, Expeditors International, Coyote Logistics, Total Quality Logistics. These are all beneficiaries of this amazing trend. Once again, just look at the yellow line on the screen. Don't you want to be part of that? All right. Moving on, trend number 4. And trend number 4 is that Americans are falling in love again with the staycation. Before cheap air travel exploded in the last 20 years, Americans used to love jumping the car and driving to the nearest beach town or mountain resort. Then we got more ambitious. Tahoe became Switzerland. Bali became the new Hawaii. But because of COVID, Americans have changed their mind about the short staycation. Trends from AirDNA, which is a data analytics provider that looks at Airbnb and VRBO trend, it clearly shows that when Americans did short staycations in the last year, they loved them. They want more. Bookings on Airbnb and VRBO for staycations over the next year are up by a staggering amount. Now, if you're thinking as soon as other countries get vaccinated, this trend is going to reverse. No, we think not. COVID brainwashed 7 billion people and brains don't snap back. Trends take a decade to reverse. People get used to things, and we think that the staycation is one of the things that people are going to get used to. So now the big trend is people want to drive just a few hours for their vacations. As COVID goes away, we expect the radius is going to go up, but the big message is that Airbnb, which was a very saturated market, that, it could have legs again. Our company is actually looking to build custom Airbnb experiences for rich people. That's not going to be possible for you guys. So, Neil, how do I make money from this trend? Well, draw a radius of 150 miles around the cities that either you're interested in or you live in, and start going after homes near the water or with hillside nature views. We think these homes are going to go up in value and in rent for a decade. Now, we're not talking about expensive places like Hawaii or Tahoe or Aspen. I mean, there's no money there, right? We're going to give you a list of unknown cities that we think are very powerful future investments. Remember that you have to look for water or natural views, right? COVID taught us that these things have great value. So if you live in Washington State, look at Coeur d'Alene, which is 30 minutes from Spokane. Austinians and San Antonians now have a new appreciation for this beautiful town called Fredericksburg, which is 75 minutes drive away. Atlantans are driving down to Destin, Florida, or Orange Beach, Florida. Houstonians are staycationing in Galveston. Californians are going to Russian River and Carlsbad. Now, none of these are cities that you typically think of in your Airbnb list, but this is where the profit is. This is where the demand is. Smart investors will understand it's now about shorter distances and nature experiences, not gambling or skiing. That'll still happen, but the money is in these staycations. So I hope you wrote those 7 cities down. I think there's tremendous Airbnb potential there. All right, time for me to move on to trend number 5. But before we do that, I do want to take 60 seconds to tell you about one of my projects. So this is one of my projects, Avondale Commons. It's a 320 unit Class B apartment complex. It's in a suburb of Phoenix. And most of you know that Phoenix is the fastest growing large city in the US, population growing at 2.6 times the US average, job growth at a stunning 5.8x the US average, 200 people move to the 5th largest metro in the country. And its rent growth is so incredible over the last 4 years that no metro in the US even comes close. In the last 12 months, stunning. No other large metro in the US, with the exception of Boise, has grown rents at this amazing level that Phoenix has. In fact, in apartment lists rundown of cities with the fastest growing rents in the country, 4 out of 10 cities are Phoenix suburbs. 4 out of 10. And the suburb that we are building in has astonishing numbers, 9% growth in rent, which is over triple the US rent growth rate. Just nuts. And the city of Avondale, that's where we are investing. It saw a mind-blowing increase of 29.8% increase in home prices in the last year. Imagine what that does to rents. So we started work 1 year ago on a 320 unit apartment complex, office workspaces, private balconies, large rooms, high ceilings, lots of amenities, enclosed garages. Remember, Phoenix, goes up to 120 degrees. So enclosed garages are awesome. So we've raised $14.5 million. I think we have about 300K left. So we expect investors to more than double their money in this project over 5 years. If rents keep rising like this for another 6 months, we expect that number to be closer to 2.5x. So this is a syndication project, accredited investors. I'll be happy to give you more information about it at the end of this project. Now back to the trends. Trend 5. Those of you who've attended any of my webinars know that I've been talking for years about Americans moving to other cities. While that's a well-documented trend, we're now beginning to think that we buried the lead. Yes, Phoenix and Boise and Austin are all seeing insane profit from all these people running away from California, but there's actually a simpler way to make money from people moving from dense cities, and that is suburbia. Our recent trend indicates that for every 1 person that moves from California to Phoenix or Boise, there are several people, 2 to 3, that have moved, but they've moved just to further suburbs in their own city. And this trend hasn't gotten as much attention as the interstate moves. We think there's more profit here. COVID brainwashed 7 billion people. And if you believe that hybrid work is here to stay, then you have to believe that the suburbs are going to do really, really well in the coming year. And we're already seeing that happen. Prices of suburbs in major cities are going up like crazy, absolutely crazy. If you live in the San Francisco Bay Area, time to write, your best options might be Oakley and Brentwood. Take a look at Modesto. If you live in Southern California, have you thought about Glendora, La Cañada, or Flintridge? Austinians should look at Killeen or New Braunfels. Phoenix lovers should look at the tiny town of Buckeye or the city of Maricopa, both 45 miles away. Portlanders should look at Dallas and Detroit, tiny cities 60 miles from Portland. Tennesseans should look at a personal favorite of mine, Dalton, Georgia, which is about 35 miles from Chattanooga. These are all far-flung suburbs. They're not sexy or beautiful, with the exception of Dalton, but they're inexpensive and they have large homes. Millions of people who never even considered them are going to consider them. Profit. Moving on, trend number 6. I'm going to move on from this trend because this is at this point a little early for this audience. And I'm going to go on to this trend, big data analytics. I love the first quote on the screen. Information is the oil of the 21st century, and big data analytics, it's the combustion engine. Nice job, right? The second quote is also interesting. What this Stanislaus guy, he's saying is that big data is making it possible to predict the future of urban development. All those people that they tell you, I made 10x or 50x, my money by holding land. Well, they did it on gut feel, and most of them lost because only the ones that won tell you their stories. But today, every one of you holds the key to mountain-sized profits in your hand, and I literally mean in your hand. That smartphone that you have, guys, that you guys have now started looking at, you ADD people, pay attention to me. That smartphone, it has astonishing power. I'm amazed at how lazy investors are. They'll spend hours on Expedia or Kayak to get a $20 discount on a hotel room or a car, but won't spend any time looking for big data prediction tools. These are tools that are 10x, background noise, guys, these are tools that are 10x better than the manual binders that big investors used to buy in the 1980s for $50,000 a year in subscription fees. So 10x better. And guess what the price is for the average big data tool? $50 a month. $50 a month is all you need for magic. There's a million tools like Deal Check. That's a free download on the App Store. It allows you to plug in any address, get a very quick analysis of any investment properties, cash flow, cap rates, ROI, sales comps, rent comps. I mean, you name it, right? You can even build rules allowing you to calculate maximum offer prices subject to a certain return on equity, a certain cash on cash. Or a tool like Inodo, very impressive, very advanced big data and artificial intelligence tool. It's the multifamily industry's most advanced automated underwriting platform. They give you comps and rents and market level analysis and expense analysis, proximity to transit, rent premium from stainless steel appliances or dog parks, even how your competition is doing. Or the tool that I've mentioned before, AirDNA, which allows you to rank every market in every neighborhood in the world, not just the US, 10 million vacation rentals in 80,000 cities. All of that for Airbnb potential. Average daily rates, projected occupancy, annual revenue, profit projections, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, whether you need pools or not. Everything in a tool under $50 a month for a metro. Or two tools that we've mentioned in our webinars many times in the last few years, Local Market Monitor and Housing Alerts. Both of these rank every city in the US for real estate investments. And both these two powerful tools use dozens of demographic factors. They spoon feed you amazing cities that you've never heard of. And these cities have growth rates that are 4 to 10 times the growth rate of the country itself. I mean, the list goes on forever. In fact, I'm going to do a webinar in a few months of my top 10 favorite analytics tools. Now, I don't own any stock in any of these 5 tools that I mentioned or any others that are up on the screen. And these people are not my friends, but I know this. They are turning the world into a have and have not situation. The haves are the people that know how to use these amazing, mind-blowing tools to generate money. The have-nots are most of you. Those of you that don't have at least 3 or 4 of these tools that you're using on a weekly or monthly basis. If you're not, understand that you're operating with a blindfold over your eyes and you're competing with people that have binoculars. Guess who's going to be able to look further into the future? So the good news is that making money with real estate, using analytics and big data, easier than ever, cheaper than ever. The bad news is that just like the stock market, investors who eventually lost out to these HFTs, the high frequency algorithms, the real estate market is now becoming a digital battlefield, and big data is the big gun. If you're not holding the big gun, well, I'll let you imagine what happens to you. All right, I'm going to skip trend 8 as well because it's a little bit early. I really am excited about this trend for next year when Apple Glass releases. So I'm going to skip it under next year. And before I give you the final two trends, I want to spend another 60 seconds on another one of our projects. This is a collection of triplexes and fourplex brand new townhomes in the city of New Braunfels. It's in the Austin, San Antonio corridor. The townhomes are delivering next year. So you've all heard that build to rent homes are the hottest market in all of real estate. In fact, they were hottest before COVID. After COVID, when people want more space, they want backyards, build to rent is the unicorn in real estate with valuations going below 3 cap. So if you want to take the hottest trend in real estate and combine it with the third fastest city in the US in terms of population, you get a home run, pardon the pun. And if you place that city halfway between two mega metros, one of which is called Austin, you get a triple home run. And this city, right, New Braunfels, amazing city. Population growth, 6.5% a year. That's 10 times faster than the US. Job growth, 9.8 times faster than the US. And its incomes have risen 55% since 2010, with a crazy 26% of that increase coming in the last year, right? Incomes increased by a quarter in 1 year because the metro was flooded with all these new affluent buyers and tenants coming from Austin and San Antonio. Home prices went up 26.5% in 1 single year. So earlier this year, we started working on building this beautiful community. Doesn't it look nice? 110 townhome units spread over 10 acres, right in the middle of the city. We're less than a mile away from the largest, fanciest project in Central Texas, the $2 billion Veramundi project, which is a 480 acres. They'll add 7,000 jobs and 6,000 single-family homes priced between $500,000 and $1 million. And the city of New Braunfels is actually doing us a huge favor. They're building a large modern park with lots of amenities literally right next to us. That's the park on the left. We've got vaulted ceilings, large windows, wide rooms. We think this is the dream rental product. I mean, it leverages all of our data analytics. We expect investor buyers to make 19 to 22% on this 100% ownership product. So at the end of the webinar, I'll give you some more information. Now back to the final two trends. Oh, here's an investor testimony. I'm going to skip past it. All right, so trend number 9 is so exciting. Let's start with the first part of this trend, blockchain. At its most basic level, blockchain is literally just a chain of digital blocks. You know, these blocks store information about transactions like date, time, and dollar numbers. In simple terms, it's a way to store transaction information in a decentralized database. Real estate transactions, unfortunately, for the most part, are offline transactions. Blockchain has now opened up a way to change that. Smart contracts now allow anyone to digitize a physical asset, right, like a multifamily, and take over listings and payments and legal documentation in real time. So you're getting rid of all the lengthy paperwork and the need for brokers and lawyers and banks. Instead, you have instant contracts with the highest transparency. So blockchain and smart contracts are the key to making real estate liquid. And while blockchain and smart contracts are very cool, they become 10x more powerful when you combine them with the third technology, tokenization. Because smart tokens allow anyone to buy real estate the way they buy stock. As a seller, you break your multifamily into pieces of $1,000 or $100. Now, this multifamily can be sold in pieces at the same time in a dozen different online markets. 10,000 investors could own a piece of your multifamily. In fact, you could use tokens to raise enough cash to bring your equity in the property down to zero. And tokenization sites would automatically send monthly cash flow to token holders. You never know who they are, you never speak with them, but you get a right to sell a cash flowing property in pieces. Property becomes stock. Heck, you could even buy a cash flowing parking spot in Manhattan with a few clicks. And this is wild because real estate has always made more money than stocks. Everybody knows that. But investing in real estate was always 100x more difficult than investing in stocks. And you can just buy a stock on a phone. But what if you could log into an E-Trade account and with a few taps buy $1,000 shares in properties in all the fantastic cities that I've talked about today? Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Falls, New Braunfels. You could just say, I love these cities. They're 10 times faster. I'm going to go buy shares in properties that are cash flowing there. You would instantly be able to put my suggestion into action. Wow. I mean, wow, right? That's why real estate investors are so excited about blockchain together with tokenization. Now, this is early days, but it's definitely happening now. Take a look, time to write, companies like Propy, Propy, companies like Real Blocks, Harbor, Brick Block, Shelter Zoom. All of these companies have one mission: make real estate as liquid as stocks. And if we can achieve that, stocks, you better watch out, because real estate could become the big dog on the stock exchanges. All right, last one. I kept this for the end because I think it's the most predictive of them all, and it's multifamily, right? All of you have heard that inflation in the US is skyrocketing. Last month, it was at nearly 6. Usually it's under 1%, 1.5%. When we looked deeper, we found that the biggest cause of inflation in the US was actually coming from real estate construction. While there's many other causes, the biggest one is that any material used to make building and homes has gone through the roof. Initially, we based shutdown in lumber mills, but then we realized that Canadian and American lumber mills have been running at full capacity for months. So we started looking at construction statistics. We find, firstly, more homes are being built in the US than at any other time in the last decade. Demand astonishingly high. We also found that people all over the world, not just in America, have decided they need to rehab their homes, add workspaces, add rooms. And as you can imagine, this led to an insane increase in lumber prices. Before the pandemic, $400 for 1,000 board feet. Then it went today around $600. It briefly went up even to $1,600. Even at today's reduced prices, lumber costs 50% more than it did before the pandemic. And we think this means that homes all over the world, not just the US, will cost more to build for at least 5 years. This is our big conclusion. The rich, they want bigger homes and exercise rooms and newer homes with health benefits and better views. And so upscale homes are going up in value the most. The middle class now wants backyards, workspaces, exercise space. So demand is up there. The lower middle class wants apartments with more rooms. Everyone wants more, more, more. And the Fed is providing fuel with these interest rates. Okay, Neal, I get it. There'll be a sustained increase in the price of new construction homes. But I'm not a builder. How do I make money from this? Well, there's a number of ways that you will benefit. Firstly, if construction costs go up, then 6 to 12 months later, rents for existing homes and apartments will go up faster than the norm. In fact, you all know we're seeing that now. April, May, June, and July, the last 4 months, US rents increased at the fastest pace in history in each of these months. 4 record-breaking months back to back, right? These are the kind of rent increases that typically we see in an entire year. We're seeing them in a month. The message for you is extremely straightforward. COVID brainwashed 7 billion people, and it reset the single-family home market in the US. And in the coming year, the rental market will reset at a completely different level. Any kind of rental investment opportunity will do really well. We do not believe that the real estate market is in a bubble, because 7 billion people think differently today about where they live, and that cannot change back in a short amount of time. If you think real estate is too expensive, invest in lumber ETFs in the stock market. You can also invest in stocks of home builders. We suggest Lennar, KB Homes, Holt, P-U-L-T-E, D.R. Horton. All 4 of these are big beneficiaries of this new trend towards larger, roomier homes. And those are 10 or 8. In this case, I covered 8 disruptive trends. These are our projects. If you're interested, check them out. I'll also leave a link in the chat for you. But understand this, trends are not forever. You have an astonishing opportunity that your kids will talk about 20, 30 years from now. Don't be rooted. Take the jump. It's an amazing time, and I don't think it'll ever come again. Thanks for listening to me. Back to Jerry.
Neil, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. If you are up to it, is 8:15. Do you have 10 minutes or so for some Q&A?
Yeah, well, I'll do about 10 minutes and then I need to jump off. I'm happy to take questions, if anybody has them. Usually my presentations are so mind-boggling that it takes a few minutes for people to go, okay, I can ask questions, right? So I'm going to put in information about our projects. So if you go to growcapitalist.com, you can learn about our projects. There's 22 of our projects that are listed there. You'll see that New Braunfels opportunity and that Avondale opportunity that I mentioned listed on that page, in case you're interested in joining our investor list. Otherwise, I think you should focus on another website that I'm plugging in. This is called multifamilyu.com, Multifamily University. We teach 20 webinars. We get blockbuster guests like John Burns. If you don't know who John Burns is, you definitely need to know him. He's got the best data in all of real estate. Folks like him come in. There's all these other blockbuster superstars that come in. So come in, join. The webinars are free. We don't. There's nothing to sell. There's no education to sell at this point.
Excellent. So for those, if anyone has a question, drop it in chat. By the way, remember to use the 3 dots in the chat to save all this information down. That way it goes straight into your PC. So first up, I'll let Mark jump in with a question. And anyone else who wants to put it in the chat, and I'll get it read.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll break the ice here. So Neal, as always, tons of gems there. I always come away from your webinars and your podcasts and things like that a little bit more informed as an investor. So thank you again. I'm just curious, from some of these trends, I noticed 2 of them that stuck out to me were analytics and the tokenization of real estate. I'm just wondering, in my mind, all of those, while long-term in nature, will open up real estate markets, make them more accessible to a wider swath of the population.
They will.
In my mind, taking the analog of that in the financial markets, that tended to make things more efficient, and as a result, lowered kind of expected returns. I'm just curious if your thoughts are on real estate. Historically has offered a superior return to stocks. I'm just thinking if you're thinking that this will come, I guess, fall more in line with where stocks are historically.
So the absolute answer is 10 years from now, real estate returns will be lower. Real estate cash flow will be lower than it is today, because once real estate becomes a commodity that anybody can buy, when they're drinking beer with their buddies and their buddy mentions this city called Idaho Falls or Dalton, Georgia, and they go there and they open an app, maybe it's E-Trade, whatever it is, and they look at a whole bunch of homes and they're like, I'll buy 1,000 of this, 1,000 of this, 1,000. When that happens, and we're going to get there very quickly in the next 5 years, the commoditization occurs, and whenever there's commoditization, returns fall. So in the long run, and it may take longer than 10 years, real estate returns and stock market returns will be almost identical. But in the short run, there's a benefit, and that benefit is, for that to happen, the real estate prices have to actually go up a fair deal, because real estate is currently priced as an illiquid asset. Liquid assets are usually priced much higher. So you look at stocks. There's lots and lots of stocks that people buy with a 2% annualized return, if anything. There's lots of stocks that you get 0 return on. There's no dividends. So you just have to wait for appreciation. So real estate has had appreciation and cash flow, where stocks have only had, for the most part, appreciation. So for real estate, if real estate is going to become stocks, there has to be a very large increase to catch up with PE ratios that you're familiar with in stock markets, which is why there's a tremendous number of people predicting that real estate has to get more expensive if it's going to become commoditized like stock. So the opportunity is really in the next 10 years. But yes, you are right, Mark, that in 10 years, real estate will cash flow a lot lower. And I wouldn't surprise if today, multifamily in the US is averaging around 5.25% as a cap rate. I expect that to drop to 3% within 10 years. And if you know what that means, that's a mind-boggling amount of money, trillions of dollars.
So one of the questions we had,
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the questions that we had in the chat was, are there any interesting cities that you've identified, I guess in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania?
So that particular area is one that its fundamentals, its underlying fundamentals are weak. Obviously, New York took the biggest hit of any city in the US in COVID. And though there are some positive signs there, it's fair to say that amongst major cities, New York was where it really sucked to be in multifamily over the last 12 months, right? So I don't think that any other city has suffered as much, maybe San Francisco. But bottom line is, major blockbuster cities that are high density are actually not beneficiaries of COVID, because COVID tends to de-densify, right? It tends to have a de-densification effect, right? So, people are looking, when we're looking at these areas, they're very dense. New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania are very, very dense. So I don't think that they are beneficiaries of the COVID trend. So I have not been recommending cities in any one of those three. All right, let's see. Boom, boom, boom. And by the way, yeah, go ahead. If anyone wants this deck, I'm happy to send it out to Jerry.
So we got a few questions that just popped in.
Sure.
So how do you get ahead of this trend and capitalize on the gap between that potential drop? Is it just ownership on syndications and multifamily properties, or is there anything else we should look at trend-wise?
For the most part, Andrew, the answer is yes. I mean, that is the easiest way to get ownership, do syndications, do multifamily. I personally am not doing that. So I'll tell you what I'm doing. I just build them now. So what I find is, when I build a property, I can build it to 6.5 cap, and then I can sell it for 4 cap. When you buy a multifamily today, you're buying them at 4.5 cap. I don't see anybody in the US buying properties at 5 cap. Everyone's buying 4.5 cap. I'm one of my properties is in contract at 4.1 cap, 1973 build. I'm putting another one in contract at 4.2 cap. So it doesn't really matter if it's a C property or a B property. It doesn't matter if it's a 70s build or an 80s build. You're going to pay low 4 caps, and then you hope for the rent increases to kind of grow that cap rate. So for me, that's a uncomfortable position to be in. Now, can most people build? No. So I think the other alignment, which is harder, is to find people that can build and align with them, because new construction today is a incredible short-term opportunity, because you can still build in the United States to 6.5 cap, where you can sell a 50-year-old property at 4.5 cap. As you can imagine, new construction properties, if I built one today, I'd probably be selling it at 4 cap or less. Let's see. Hamilton actually, Mark answered Hamilton's questions. Thank you, Mark. That's a very good one. My favorites there are actually local market monitor, and also the one that isn't mentioned in your list, Mark, is housing alerts. Can you type that in? That's a good one. I really enjoy housing alerts. Local market monitor is more for geeks like me. It uses a lot of Excel. Housing alerts is for people who like dashboards. It gives you a very good dashboard. Just so you know, both tools have for the last 12 months shown one city at the top in the United States. Any guesses as to what that city might be? The city that ranks highest for growth and potential and real estate potential for the last 12 months. Any guesses? Phoenix, yeah, fair, close, but not quite. Boise, very close. You're very close there. So the answer is, it's usually the highest potential is never in the hottest city. Boise is the hottest city in America, but it's usually in its tertiary. So Tucson is today a better buy than Phoenix. And in the same way, Idaho Falls is a better buy than Boise. So for local market monitor and housing alerts, both of these are paid tools, really, really worth it, the money. So I pay for both tools. And when both tools arrive on the same city, I go all in. So you can imagine a very significant portion of my current cash flow and net worth is going into projects in Idaho Falls. So, all right. Well, Alethea, thank you for your comment. I loved hearing that. What is it costing to build, say, a typical 1,000 square foot 2 unit today? Yeah, 175K, Arn, maybe a little less for 1,000 square feet. Most people are not building 1,000 because the trend is towards building bigger. People want more. So we're building 1,400 square feet, and it's costing us about 200,000. And we'll take that, I think, as the last question. So thank you all. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll send the deck out through Jerry. And if you'd like to keep doing, I do about 10 of these kinds of webinars. I did one that had about 1,200 people a few weeks ago called the destructive impact of climate change on real estate. So that one's fresh and it's available at multifamilyu.com. So check it out there. And thank you for having me on, Jerry.
Neal, thank you. We all appreciate having you on. That was great.
Awesome.
As always, very thought-provoking, very current stuff. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark.